A millionaire tirelessly roams the city's forgotten neighborhoods, searching for his missing wife. Everything changes when a little girl points to the poster and says, "She lives in my house." Upon finding her, he realizes the woman he loves now lives a new life, with no memory, a new identity, and a different family. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. And now back to our story. The March heat was scorching the asphalt as Robert Miller, 42, pushed the wheels of his chair down the narrow street of St. Peter's Crossing. His hands were marked with new calluses, different from the ones he'd had when he commanded meetings in air-conditioned boardrooms. These calluses came from months of navigating every forgotten corner of the city, holding stacks of paper that no longer fit in his house. The poster was crumpled at the edges. Robert smoothed it against the lamppost before taping it up, his fingers trembling slightly. Megan's face smiled from the photo, taken 2 years ago on some trip he couldn't quite remember. Brown hair falling over her shoulders, almond-shaped eyes, 38 years of a life that had simply evaporated one January night last year. 426 days. Robert counted every single one. The wheelchair creaked as he turned toward the next post. His legs, motionless under the blanket he insisted on carrying even in the heat, were a constant reminder of that night. The same night, everything fell apart. The accident that had confined him to this chair happened just 3 weeks before Megan disappeared. He was still in the hospital when she walked out of their house and never came back. No one believed in the search anymore. His brother, Greg, had stopped answering his calls months ago. The police had shelved the case after 6 months with no leads. Even Megan's mother, Celia, a 70-year-old woman who lived in Denver, had suggested that maybe it was time to move on. But how could he move on when every fiber of his being screamed that she was alive? Robert felt it in his bones, in his breath, in the way he woke up every morning before dawn with his heart pounding. He handed out another 15 flyers that afternoon. Some people took them with pity in their eyes. Others simply ignored him. An elderly woman even commented that she'd seen that face before, but when Robert pressed her, she admitted she was confused, that she saw so many faces every day. The sun was beginning to set when Robert realized he'd gone farther than planned. St. Peter's Crossing gave way to an even rougher area, where houses were crammed together and the asphalt turned to packed dirt. His physical therapist had warned him not to push his arms so hard, that recovery took time. But time was exactly what Robert felt he didn't have. That's when he saw her. A little girl, no more than 4 years old, was walking alone down the street. She wore a faded pink dress, too big for her small frame, and flip-flops that dragged in the dust. Her dark hair was pulled into a crooked ponytail, with strands escaping from all sides. The child stopped in front of Robert and stared intently at the poster he was holding. Her brown eyes widened. "Can I see?" she asked, her small voice filled with childish curiosity. Robert lowered the paper to her level. The girl reached out, gently touching the printed face of Megan with her dirt-smudged fingertips. "She's pretty," the girl murmured almost to herself. "Have you seen her?" Robert felt his heart race. He'd heard those words before, dozens of times, always followed by disappointment. The girl nodded, without taking her eyes off the photo. "Where?" Robert's voice came out louder than he intended, startling the child. He took a deep breath, forcing a softer tone. "I'm sorry, sweetie, it's just, this woman is very important to me. Can you tell me where you saw her?" The girl stared at him for a long moment, as if deciding whether she could trust him. Then, with the devastating simplicity only children possess, she said, "She lives at my house." The world stopped. Robert blinked, trying to process the words. What do you mean she lives at your house?" "She lives with me, my dad, and my brother. She's my mommy." The words hit Robert like a punch to the gut. His breath caught in his throat. For over a year he had imagined 1,000 scenarios, 1,000 possibilities. Never, in any of them, was Megan living an ordinary life, in an ordinary house, with a family that wasn't his. "What's your name?" he managed to ask, his voice hoarse. "Julia," the girl answered, swaying from side to side. "I'm 4. I'll be 5 in August. Julia, Robert repeated, trying to stay calm. Your mum, has she always lived with you? The girl frowned, thinking. Not always. She came when I was 3. Daddy found her hurt on the street. She didn't remember anything, not even her name. So Daddy took care of her and she stayed with us. Every word was a stab wound. Robert had to grip the wheels of his chair to keep from falling apart right there. Can you take me to her? Julia looked from side to side as if checking if she was doing something wrong. She's home now. Daddy is too. He works as a mechanic at the shop on the corner. Please, Robert begged, and he didn't care that his voice trembled. I just need to see her. Just once. The girl bit her lower lip, hesitant. Then, with that terrifying confidence of children, she held out her hand. Okay, but you have to promise not to be loud. Daddy doesn't like visitors. Robert followed Julia through increasingly narrow streets. The wheelchair struggled against the potholes and uneven ground. His hands burned, but he felt nothing but the urgent need to get there. After 10 minutes that felt like an eternity, Julia stopped in front of a small house painted a faded blue. The paint was peeling and the iron gate was rusted. This is it, Julia whispered. But wait, let me see if she's in the kitchen. The girl ran inside, leaving the gate ajar. Robert positioned his chair to get a view of the side window, and then he saw her. Megan was standing by the stove, stirring something in a pot. She was wearing a simple t-shirt and a long skirt. Her hair was shorter, tied in a low bun. She looked thinner, but it was her. It was definitely her. Robert's heart pounded so hard he thought it would explode. Tears burned his eyes. She was alive. After 426 days of desperate searching, of sleepless nights of being called crazy by everyone he knew, there she was, just a few feet away. Robert was about to call out to her when a man walked into the kitchen, tall, strong, about 35, wearing grease-stained overalls. The man came up behind Megan, wrapping her in a hug. She turned, smiling, and kissed his cheek with a familiarity that made Robert's stomach churn. Julia ran back to the gate. She's making dinner. Do you want to come in? Robert couldn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the window, watching the woman he loved, the woman who had promised to spend her life with him, living as if he had never existed. Mister, Julia touched his arm. Are you okay? Before Robert could respond, the front door opened and the man appeared, drying his hands on a towel. His eyes narrowed when he saw a stranger in a wheelchair talking to his daughter. Julia, what have I told you about talking to strangers? His voice was deep, protective. But Daddy, he's looking for someone. Julia ran to her father, taking his hand. And the person he's looking for is Mommy. The man froze. His face, which had been merely suspicious, became a mask of understanding and something Robert couldn't immediately identify. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. Come in, he said finally, his voice lower now. I think we need to talk. Robert pushed his chair into the small yard, his heart hammering against his ribs. He was about to enter the house where his wife was living a life that didn't include him, where she loved another man and called another child her own. And he had no idea what he was going to say or do when he was finally face to face with her. The living room was small and modest. A worn fabric sofa took up most of the space, along with an old TV on a scratched wooden table. The walls had a few photos taped up, Julia smiling, the man with an older child on his lap, and a more recent picture of all of them together, including Megan. Robert entered slowly, each push of the wheels feeling like it weighed a ton. The man closed the door behind him and crossed his arms, standing between Robert and the kitchen, where Megan was still stirring dinner. My name is Paul, he said, his voice controlled but tense. Paul Davis, I'm 36, been a mechanic for 15 years, and you are? Robert Miller. The words came out dry, formal. Megan Miller's husband of 8 years. The silence that followed was as heavy as lead. Paul closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering his strength. She doesn't remember that name, Paul said finally. She doesn't remember you, or any life before she got here. I know, your daughter told me. Robert gripped the arms of his chair. But that doesn't change the fact that she's my wife. She disappeared 1 year and 2 months. Hago, I've turned this entire city upside down looking for her. Julia appeared in the kitchen doorway, her curious eyes darting between the two men. "Daddy, who is he?" Before Paul could answer, Megan appeared behind the girl, drying her hands on a dish towel. She looked at Robert with a polite but distant expression, the way one looks at any stranger. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice soft and gentle, exactly as Robert remembered. "Julia told me someone was here. Do you need help with something?" Robert couldn't speak. His throat was tight, his eyes burning with tears. He fought to hold back. There she was, just a few feet away, looking at him as if they'd never met. "Meg," he finally managed to say, using the nickname only he called her. "It's me. Robert." She frowned, confused. She looked at Paul, searching for an explanation. "This man says that you're his wife," Paul explained, his voice heavy with an emotion he was trying to hide. "He says you disappeared over a year ago." Megan blinked several times, processing. Then she took a step forward, studying Robert's face more closely. "I'm sorry, but I don't know you." Her voice was genuinely apologetic. "I don't remember ever seeing you before." "I know you don't remember," Robert said, his voice trembling. "Paul said you lost your memory, but I can prove it. I have proof of who you are." He pulled a worn leather wallet from his jacket pocket. From inside he took out their marriage certificate, carefully folded and protected in plastic. Megan took it, her fingers trembling slightly as she read. "Megan Thompson Miller," she read aloud. "Date of birth, April 15th, 1985. She looked up at Robert. "Is that my real name?" "Yes. You were born in Denver. Your mother's name is Celia. Your father passed away when you were 12. You have a birthmark on your left shoulder, shaped like a crescent moon. You're allergic to shrimp and you love dark chocolate. You used to wake up at 6 every morning to do yoga and—" "Stop," Megan interrupted, bringing a hand to her forehead. "Please stop. I can't remember any of this." Julia clung to Megan's leg, her eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, are you going to leave?" The question broke everyone's heart in the room. Megan immediately knelt, hugging the little girl. "No, sweetie, I'm not going anywhere." She kissed the top of Julia's head, but her eyes were fixed on Robert, full of confusion and what might have been fear. Paul stepped forward, placing himself protectively near Megan. "Look, I understand this situation is complicated," he began, "but you can't just show up here and turn her life upside down. She's built a life here. She has a family." "She already had a family," Robert exploded, his voice louder than he intended. "With me. We were married, we had a life together, a house, plans, everything." "A life she doesn't remember," Paul shot back, his voice equally raised. "You can have all the papers in the world, but it doesn't change the fact that the woman you knew doesn't exist anymore. The person she is now, she chose to be here, with me, with my kids." "She didn't choose," Robert yelled. "She was confused, hurt, lost. You took advantage." "I took advantage." Paul took a threatening step toward Robert, but stopped himself. "I found her collapsed on a dark street, with a deep gash on her head. No ID. Nothing. She was shaking, terrified, didn't even know her own name. I took her to the hospital, paid out of my own pocket because she had nothing. When she was discharged, she had nowhere to go. I brought her to my home because no one else would." Megan was pale, clutching Julia to her. Silent tears streamed down her face. "Please stop," she whispered. "Both of you, please." The two men stopped immediately, looking at her. Robert felt his heart shatter at the sight of the pain on her face. "I'm sorry, Meg," he said, softer now. "I didn't mean to. I've spent over a year looking for you. Every single day. Every street, every alley, every person I saw, I showed them your picture. I haven't eaten right, haven't slept right. My family gave up on me because they thought I was going crazy. But I knew. I knew you were alive somewhere." Megan wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I'm so sorry for what you've been through," she said, her voice weak. "But I really don't remember you. I don't remember anything before waking up in that hospital. Paul is right. The person you're looking for, I don't know if I'm her." "You are," Robert insisted. You have a scar on your right knee from when you fell off your bike at 9. You have a slightly crooked front tooth you always wanted to fix, but never had the courage. You root for the Bears because your dad did. You—" "Enough," Paul interrupted, his voice firmer now. "You're making her uncomfortable. I think you should leave." "No," Megan said suddenly, surprising everyone. "No, wait." She looked at Robert, then at Paul. "I need to know. If all of this is true, if I really was that person, I need to know." A boy of about 8 appeared at the door, rubbing his eyes as if he'd just woken up. He had the same dark eyes as Paul and looked scared by the raised voices. "Dad, what's going on?" "Nothing, Peter," Paul said, his voice forcedly calm. "Go back to your room." But Peter didn't move. He looked at Megan with the intuition children have for sensing when something is wrong. "Is Anna leaving?" Robert noticed what the boy called her. Anna. It wasn't even her name, but it was how she was known here. A nickname Paul had probably invented when she arrived with no memory. "I'm not," Megan assured the boy, but her voice lacked conviction. Robert pulled more papers from his wallet. Photos, dozens of them. He and Megan at their wedding, on trips, at dinners, at family parties. In everyone, she was smiling genuinely, happily. Megan took the photos with trembling hands. She studied each one carefully, her face going through waves of emotion, confusion, surprise, something that might have been recognition. "This picture," she held up a specific one taken in front of a waterfall. "I dream about this place sometimes. There's a wooden bridge and red rocks all around." Robert completed, his heart racing. "It's Starved Rock. We went there for our second wedding anniversary." Megan pressed the photo to her chest, closing her eyes. A tear escaped and rolled down her cheek. "I don't know what to do," she confessed, her voice breaking. "I look at these pictures and I feel something, like they're dreams I've had. But when I look at you," she gestured to Paul and the children, "I know who you are. I know that I love you." The words were like knives in Robert. She loved them. She loved the man who had found her, loved the children who weren't hers. And she didn't love him anymore. Not because she chose not to, but because she simply didn't remember that she once had. "I'm not asking you to decide now," Robert said, making a huge effort to keep his voice steady. "Just please give me a chance to show you who you were. Come visit our house. Talk to your mother. Let me help you remember." "No," Paul said immediately. "That's manipulation. You want to take her away from here, brainwash her." "I want my wife back," Robert yelled, all his restraint finally breaking. "Can you understand that? The woman I love, who I swore to protect, is alive. She's here. And you want me to just walk away and pretend nothing happened?" "I want you to respect who she's become," Paul retorted. "She's happy here. She has peace, a routine, people who care for her." "I cared for her too." The tears were now flowing freely down Robert's face. "I loved her more than anything in this world. When I had the accident," he slapped his own legs, "when I got stuck in this chair, do you know who stayed by my side?" She did. Every day in the hospital, every physical therapy session, every moment I wanted to give up. She was there. And then, 3 weeks after I got home, she just vanished. No warning, no explanation, no body. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the children were quiet, feeling the weight of the moment. Megan took a deep breath, wiping her face. When she spoke, her voice was firmer. "I'll go," she said. "I'll visit this house, see these things, talk to these people, but—" She looked at Paul. "I'm coming back because this is my home now. These are my children. And Paul, he saved me." Paul closed his eyes, clearly relieved but also tormented. "When?" Robert asked, trying not to show the desperation he felt. "Tomorrow," Megan answered. "After the kids go to school, Paul can bring me." "I'm coming with you," Paul stated, leaving no room for argument. Robert nodded. He had no choice. "Tomorrow then, at 10. He took a crumpled business card from his pocket and handed it to Megan. "This is the address, and my phone number." Megan took the card, read the address, and her eyes widened slightly. "The Miller Mansion. Lincoln Park," she read. You live in a mansion. We lived, Robert corrected gently. It was our home. Megan looked at the small room around her, then at her own simple clothes, processing the information. The life that was supposedly hers before was completely different from the life she knew now. Robert turned to leave, but before he reached the door, he turned back one more time. Meg, one last thing. He waited until she looked at him. Our wedding anniversary is June 23rd. You always ordered the eggplant lasagna at your favorite restaurant, the Terrace Grill, and afterward, we'd get pistachio ice cream from the shop on the square, even if it was cold out. Something flickered across Megan's face, a quick, confused emotion. She brought a hand to her head, as if feeling a sudden pain. Eggplant, she murmured. Sometimes I taste eggplant in my dreams, and pistachio. But I've never had pistachio here. Paul and Robert exchanged a tense look. For a brief moment, something had connected. A tiny, fragmented memory, but a real one. Robert left the house with his heart in pieces, but also for the first time in 427 days with a microscopic spark of hope. She was alive. She was there. And maybe, just maybe, there was still a part of her that remembered. But as he pushed his chair down the dark street back to his modified car, he couldn't stop thinking about the way she looked at Paul, the way she held Julia, the life she had built without him, and the question that tormented him was, even if she did remember, would it be enough to make her choose the past over the present? The next morning arrived slowly for Robert. He hadn't slept. He spent the entire night tidying the house, organizing photos, setting out objects that belonged to Megan. Every item he touched brought back a memory. The pearl necklace he gave her for her birthday, the cookbook with notes in the margins, the half-empty bottle of perfume still in the bathroom. The housekeeper Lucia, a 58-year-old woman who had worked for them for 6 years, arrived at 7 a.m. and was shocked to see the state of the house. "Mr. Miller, were you up all night again?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. "She's coming today, Lucia. Megan is coming today." The woman brought a hand to her chest, her eyes filling with tears. "Thank God, I knew she was alive, I always knew." She paused, noticing Robert's expression. "But, is something wrong? She doesn't remember me, or anything. She's living with another man, calls his children her family." Lucia hugged Robert, ignoring any professional formality. She had witnessed all of his despair over the last year. At 10 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Robert took a deep breath and went to answer it. When he opened the door, he saw Megan standing on the step, Paul beside her with a protective hand on her back. She was wearing simple jeans and a white blouse, her hair loose and falling over her shoulders. She looked nervous, her fingers fidgeting with the strap of her purse. "Hello," she said softly. "Hi. Please come in." The trio entered the spacious foyer. The Italian marble floor gleamed, and a crystal chandelier hung from the high ceiling. Megan stopped, looking around with wide eyes. "This is really big," she murmured. Paul looked uncomfortable, his hands stuffed in his jeans pockets. It was clear this environment was not familiar to him. Robert led them to the living room. Megan sat stiffly on the edge of the leather sofa, as if afraid of getting something dirty. Her eyes scanned every detail. The stone fireplace, the shelves filled with books, the paintings on the walls. "You decorated all of this," Robert said gently. "Every piece of furniture, every color, every object. You had a special talent for it." Megan touched the fabric of the sofa, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's beautiful," was all she could say. Lucia appeared with a tray of coffee and cookies. When she saw Megan, she dropped the tray. The cups shattered on the floor, coffee spreading across the Persian rug. "Mrs. Miller," she ran and hugged Megan tightly. "My girl, how I prayed for you. Every day I lit a candle." "Lucia," Robert interrupted gently. "Megan doesn't... She doesn't remember." Lucia pulled away, confused. She looked at Megan as if expecting her to say it was a joke, but Megan just stared back with a mixture of discomfort and pity. "I'm sorry," Megan said. You seem like a very kind person." But I don't know who you are." Lucia started to cry. Robert asked her to get more coffee, more to give the woman a moment to compose herself than because they actually needed it. "Want to see the rest of the house?" Robert asked. Megan nodded. Paul stood up too, clearly having no intention of leaving her alone. Robert took them to the study first. The walls were lined with dark wood with a large mahogany desk in the center. Diplomas and certificates decorated an entire wall. "You used to work with me in here sometimes," Robert explained. "You handled the administrative side of the company. You have a business degree from Northwestern." Megan approached the desk, running her fingers over the smooth surface. Then her eyes landed on a framed photo, she and Robert on her graduation day, both smiling broadly. Was I smart?" she asked, her voice small. "Ah," Robert corrected. "You are smart and determined and incredible." Paul coughed uncomfortably. "Can we move on?" The next room was the master bedroom. Megan stopped at the door, hesitant. The king-size bed was perfectly made, with white sheets and a navy blue comforter. The heavy curtains were drawn, leaving the room in shadow. Robert turned on the light. This was our room. Megan entered slowly. There was a dresser with picture frames, photos from the wedding, from trips, from everyday moments. She picked up one where she was wearing a wedding dress, Robert beside her in a grey suit. "We got married in June," Robert said, "at a farm in Lake Geneva. It rained in the morning, but the sun came out right before the ceremony. You said it was a sign." Megan held the photo tightly, studying every detail. Her eyes began to shine with unshed tears. "I looked happy," she observed. "You were. We were." Paul moved, standing closer to Megan. "I think she's seen enough." "No," Megan said suddenly. "I want to see more. I need to see more." Robert opened the walk-in closet. Megan's clothes were all still there, untouched. Designer dresses, expensive shoes, leather handbags. She ran her hand over the fabrics, a look of disbelief on her face. "All of this was mine?" "Is yours," Robert insisted. She picked up a red dress, the fabric slipping through her fingers. Then suddenly she pressed the dress to her face and inhaled deeply. Her eyes closed. "This smell," she whispered. "Jasmine perfume. I wore this. I remember wearing this." Robert's heart leaped. "Yes. It was your favorite." "Perfume. Chanel No. 5. You wore it every day." Megan opened her eyes and they were filled with confusion and fear. "How can I remember a smell but not remember anything else?" "The brain is complex," Paul intervened, his voice tense. "Sensory memories are different from episodic memories. It doesn't mean you're going to get everything back." "But it means something is there," Robert countered. "Buried, but not lost." Megan put the dress back and turned to leave the closet. That's when she saw through the bedroom window the backyard garden. She froze. "Those roses," she pointed. "Yellow roses." "You planted every one of them," Robert said, his voice emotional. "They were your favorite. You said yellow was the color of hope." Megan left the room quickly, almost running. She went down the stairs with Robert and Paul behind her, crossed the house, and went out the back door into the garden. The space was vast. A perfectly manicured lawn, an infinity pool, and a huge bed of yellow roses. Megan walked to the flowers, knelt, and touched the petals delicately. "I come here in my dreams," she said, her voice broken. "There's a wooden bench, over there." She pointed to a corner of the garden where, indeed, there was a wooden bench under an old oak tree. "You used to sit there every afternoon," Robert confirmed, approaching. "You'd read or just watch the sunset." Megan got up and walked to the bench. She sat down, and her hands caressed the wood as if searching for something. Then she stopped. Her fingers had found something carved into the wood. R+M, forever. Robert had made that carving the first day they moved into the house. Megan traced the letters with her finger over and over as if trying to absorb their meaning. "Forever," she repeated. "But forever ended, didn't it?" The words were like a punch to Robert's gut. "It didn't end. You're here. You're alive. That means there's still a chance." "A chance for what?" Paul interrupted, his patience clearly worn out. "For you to erase her? To force her to be someone she's not anymore? She is still the same person." "She's not," Paul yelled. "The Anna I know, the one I've taken care of for over a year, she's kind and humble. She wakes up early to make coffee for me and the kids. She mends their clothes when they rip. She sings while she does the dishes. This Megan of yours," he spat the name, "this woman who lived in a mansion and wore expensive dresses, that's not who she is now." Megan stood up, tears finally streaming. "Stop! Both of you, please stop!" The two men fell silent, both breathing heavily. "I don't know who I am," Megan cried. "I look at this house and I feel something. Like I'm coming home but also arriving in a strange place for the first time. I see these clothes, these photos, and it's like looking at someone else's life. But it's also like looking in the mirror and seeing a reflection I don't recognize." She turned to Robert. "You say you love me, and I believe you. I can see it in your face, in your voice. But I don't feel it back. Not because I don't want to, but because it's just not here." She tapped her own chest. "I can't manufacture a feeling that doesn't exist." Robert felt his world crumble again. "But you did feel it," he pleaded. "One day you did, and maybe with time." "And what do I do in the meantime?" Megan asked. "Abandon the children who call me Mom? Leave Paul, who saved me when I had no one? Come live here and pretend I remember, pretend I love you?" "I don't want you to pretend. I just want a chance to help you truly remember." Just then, Lucia appeared at the back door. "Mr. Miller, there's someone here to see Mrs. Miller." "Who?" Before Lucia could answer, an elderly woman appeared behind her, pushing her aside. Celia, Megan's mother, was there, 70 years old, her grey hair in a bun, wearing a simple but elegant outfit. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Megan!" She ran across the garden faster than someone her age should. "My daughter! Oh my God, my daughter!" She reached Megan and hugged her fiercely, sobbing loudly. Megan stood stiffly, her arms at her sides, not knowing what to do. "I knew it!" Celia cried. "I knew you were alive! A mother always knows." She pulled back, holding Megan's face in her hands. "Let me look at you. Let me see my baby girl." Megan looked at the elderly woman, and something crossed her face, not recognition exactly, but something deeper. A connection that goes beyond memory. Your eyes," Megan murmured. "I dream about these eyes. Brown eyes with little green specks." Celia sobbed harder. "Yes, you always said that when you were little. You said my eyes had little green stars." Megan brought a hand to her own face, feeling the tears that were streaming down. "Who are you?" she asked, but her voice carried the weight of someone who already knew the answer. "I'm your mother, my love. I'm Celia. Your mum." And then, like a dam breaking, Megan collapsed. Her knees gave out and she fell into Celia's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. They weren't tears of recognition, but of something much more primal, the cry of a child finding her mother after being lost. Paul watched it all with a pale face. Robert had tears streaming down his face. Lucia was crying at the door. "Mom!" Megan sobbed, the word coming out instinctively without conscious thought. "Mom!" Celia held her, stroking her hair, humming a soft melody that Megan, from somewhere deep in her mind, recognized. But in the middle of this emotional reunion, no one noticed Paul's cell phone ring. No one saw him step away to answer it. And no one heard his face go completely white as he said, "What do you mean Julia's missing from school?" The panic on Paul's face made everyone stop. Megan immediately pulled away from Celia, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "What is it? What happened?" she asked, her voice already trembling. "Julia," Paul said, the phone still pressed to his ear. "The school called. She left the classroom during recess and no one knows where she is." Megan went pale. Without thinking, she ran toward the exit, Paul right behind her. Robert tried to follow in his chair, but it was impossible to keep up. "Wait, I can help," he yelled, but they were already gone. Robert heard a car engine start and the sound of tires screeching on the pavement. He slammed his fist on the arm of his chair, frustrated by his own limitations. "Mr. Miller," Lucia approached. "Do you want me to call someone?" Before he could answer, Celia touched his shoulder. "Let's go after them. I'll drive." Robert hesitated for only a second before agreeing. He knew Chicago like the back of his hand. If they could figure out where the girl went, he could help. Meanwhile, Paul was driving dangerously fast through the streets, Megan in the passenger seat with her hands clenched in her lap. Her heart was beating so hard it hurt. "She's never done this," Megan said, her voice shaking. "Julia never leaves without telling someone. She's obedient, careful." "I know," Paul answered, his knuckles white from gripping the steering wheel. "That's why I'm worried." They reached the school in less than 10 minutes. The principal, a middle-aged woman with red-framed glasses, was waiting for them at the gate, visibly nervous. "Mr. Davis, Mrs. Davis," she used the name Megan was known by there. "We've searched the entire school. She simply disappeared during recess. One of the teachers said she saw her talking to someone at the gate, but lost sight of her when she had to break up a fight." "Talking to who?" Paul asked, his voice harsh. "We don't know. We've checked the cameras, but the angle doesn't cover that part of the gate." Megan felt her legs give out. Paul held her by the arm. "We have to look. She can't be far," Megan said, her voice a high-pitched note of desperation. They ran through the streets around the school. Megan screamed Julia's name, looking down every corner, every alley, every store. People stopped to stare. Some offered to help, but no one had seen a little girl in a pink dress. 20 minutes of fruitless searching passed. Megan was on the verge of collapse when her cell phone rang, the old one Paul had bought for her. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered, her voice desperate. "Mommy?" Julia's voice came from the other end. "Julia! Oh my God, where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm okay. I'm at the park. The one near our house. The lady brought me here." "What lady?" "Julia, what lady?" "The lady from the poster. The pretty lady the man in the chair was looking for?" Megan's blood ran cold. She looked at Paul, who was already signaling for them to get back in the car. "Julia, stay right there. Don't move. We're on our way to get you." They ran back to the car. During the drive, which took another 15 minutes in heavy traffic, Megan couldn't stop shaking. Her mind was a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Why would she do that? Megan asked aloud. Why would she, Megan, run away from school to go to the park? Paul didn't answer, but the tension in his jaw said it all. He knew the answer too, even if he didn't want to admit it. When they got to the park, they saw Julia sitting on a bench, swinging her little legs, seemingly calm. Megan got out of the car before it had fully stopped and ran to the girl, dropping to her knees in front of her and hugging her tightly. "Julia, you scared me so much. Why did you do that?" Julia hugged Megan back, but there was something different in her eyes, a determination that shouldn't be present in a 4-year-old. "I had to come here," she said simply. "Why, sweetie, why?" "Because this is where we always come. You, me, and Daddy. And I thought, if you went away with that man from the big house, we wouldn't come here anymore." The words hit Megan like a slap. She pulled back a little, looking into the girl's eyes. You ran away because you thought I was going to leave you?" Julia nodded, tears starting to stream down her face. "At school, the girls kept saying you're not my real mom, that you have another family, and I got scared you would leave and never come back." Paul approached, picking Julia up. The girl hid her face in his neck, sobbing. "No one's leaving, Princess," Paul murmured, but his voice lacked conviction. He looked at Megan over Julia's head, and there was a silent accusation in his gaze. Megan felt the weight of guilt crush her chest. This child, who had welcomed her with so much love, was now suffering because of the mess her life had become. That's when Robert arrived, with Celia pushing his chair. Julia lifted her head when she saw him and shrank closer to Paul. "It's him," she whispered. "The man who wants to take Mommy away." "No, Julia," Megan said quickly. "It's not like that. It's complicated, sweetie." "But is it true?" Julia asked, her big eyes fixed on Megan. "Are you his wife? Did you have another life before you met us?" Megan opened her mouth, but no words came out. How could she explain something so complex to a 4-year-old? Robert approached slowly. "Hi, Julia. Remember me?" The girl didn't answer, just clung tighter to Paul. "I know, you're scared," Robert continued, his voice gentle, "and I don't want to scare you more, but you need to understand something. Megan, your mummy Anna, she's a very special person, and a long time ago, before you met her, we were a family. Just like you, Paul, and your brother are a family. But now you want her back?" Julia said, not as a question, but as an accusation. "I want her to know who she really is," Robert corrected. "It's not fair for her to live without knowing where she came from, who she was, what people loved her." "But we love her," Julia cried, her voice echoing through the park. "I love her. Why isn't that enough?" The question hung in the air. Celia approached, kneeling in front of Robert's chair to be at Julia's level. "Sweetheart," she began, her voice soft. "You love Anna very much, don't you?" Julia nodded, wiping her tears with her hands. "Then imagine how I feel. She's my daughter. I carried her. I took care of her when she was a baby. I taught her how to walk, how to talk. And then one day she just disappeared, and I thought I would never see her again. Can you imagine how painful that was?" Julia looked at Celia, processing the words. But if she goes back to you, she'll forget me, just like she forgot you." The simple, devastating logic of a 4-year-old silenced everyone. Megan sat on the bench, putting her face in her hands. She was trapped between 2 worlds, 2 families, 2 lives. And whatever choice she made, someone would get hurt. "I won't forget you," she said finally, taking her hands from her face and looking at Julia. "No matter what happens, I will never forget you." "Promise?" Julia asked, her voice small. "I promise." Paul put Julia down. The girl ran to Megan and climbed into her lap, hugging her tightly. Megan held her, closing her eyes and inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and a child's sweat. When she opened her eyes, she saw Robert watching. There was pain in his gaze, but also understanding. He understood what she was feeling, even if it was killing him inside. "I think we should talk," Celia suggested. "All of us. Without the children present, we need to find a solution that's best for Megan." "The best solution is for her to stay where she is," Paul said, his voice hard. "She has a life here. She has responsibilities, people who depend on her." "She has a life that was built on a lie," Robert retorted. "She deserves to know the truth." "She knows the truth, and she still chose to stay. She didn't choose anything. She's confused, scared." "Enough!" Megan yelled, startling Julia. She took a deep breath, calming her voice. "I'm sorry, sweetie, but they need to stop this, both of you." She looked at Robert and Paul. "I'm not an object you can fight over. I'm a person, and this decision is mine." "Then decide," Paul said, challenging her. "Stay or go." Megan was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was broken but firm. "I don't know. I honestly don't know. Part of me looks at that house, at those photos, and feels like I should be there. But when I look at Julia, at Peter, at you, Paul, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be." "And what about me?" Robert asked, his voice almost a whisper. "Do you feel anything when you look at me?" Megan met his eyes. There was so much suffering there, so much desperate hope. "I feel sadness," she admitted. "Sadness for you, for everything you've been through. But love, the kind of love you have for a husband, no, not yet. Maybe never." The words clearly destroyed Robert, but he nodded, accepting the brutal honesty. "But I'd like to try," Megan continued, surprising everyone. "Not because I feel obligated, but because I deserve to know who I was. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering." "What are you saying?" Paul asked, panic creeping into his voice. "I'm saying, I want to spend time getting to know my old life, my mother, my house, my husband. But I also want to keep being a part of Julia and Peter's lives. I want to split my time." "That's not going to work," Paul said, shaking his head. "You can't have a foot in 2 different boats. Eventually you'll have to choose." Then when that time comes, I'll choose, Megan answered. But until then, this is the best I can offer. Robert wanted to argue, to demand more. But he saw the determination in her face. It was better than better. Nothing. It was better than losing her completely. Okay, he agreed. We can try it that way. Paul said nothing, just picked Julia up again and started walking toward the car. Paul, Megan called after him, I'll be home tonight, I promise. He stopped but didn't turn around. You don't have to promise anything. If you want to stay there in your mansion with your mother and your husband, that's your business. Paul, don't be like that. Be like what? He finally turned, and there were tears in his eyes. You came into my life hurt and lost. I took care of you. I opened my home, my life, my family to you. My kids love you like a mother. And now you're torn. And I get it, I swear I do. But it doesn't make it any less painful. He got in the car with Julia and drove away, leaving Megan, Robert, and Celia in the park. Come home, Celia said softly. Even if it's just for today, let me take care of you like I did when you were little. Maybe it will help bring something back. Megan looked at Robert, then at her mother. Finally, she nodded. They went back to the mansion. Megan was exhausted emotionally and physically. Celia prepared the guest room for her, refusing to let her sleep in the master bedroom until she truly chose to be there. That night, Megan lay in the comfortable bed, so different from the thin mattress at Paul's house. She stared at the high ceiling, the elegant furniture, the impeccable decor. All of it should have been familiar, should have brought comfort. But all she felt was emptiness. She picked up her cell phone and called Paul. He answered on the third ring. Hi, she said. Hi. Is Julia okay? Crying. She thinks you're not coming back. Megan's heart broke. Tell her I'll be back tomorrow morning. I'll make breakfast. I'll take her to school. I'll do everything just like always. Okay. There was a long pause. Paul, I'm so sorry. For everything. I know. He hung up. Megan held the phone to her chest, the tears finally falling freely. On the other side of the door, Robert sat in his chair, listening to everything. And for the first time since he found her, he wondered if he was doing the right thing. If bringing Megan back wasn't in fact destroying the person she had become. But then he thought of her smile in the old photos, of the life they had together, of the love they once shared. And he decided it was worth fighting for, even if it meant competing with the love she felt for a family that wasn't biologically hers. What Robert didn't know was that, at that very moment, on the other side of the city, someone was watching Paul's house through binoculars, someone who knew the whole truth about Megan's disappearance. And that person was deciding if it was time to reveal everything. The following weeks were an exercise in impossible balance. Megan would wake up at 5 a.m. at Paul's house, make breakfast for him and the kids, take Julia and Peter to school, and then take the bus to the Miller mansion, where she would spend the afternoons with Robert and Celia. Every day was a silent war with herself. In Paul's simple house, she felt at home doing everyday tasks, cooking chili, folding laundry, sewing a loose button. But at the mansion, when Celia showed her photo albums or when Robert told stories of trips they took together, something inside her stirred, as if trying to awaken. It was a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after their reunion, when everything truly began to fall apart. Megan was in the kitchen at Paul's house, preparing lunch. Julia was doing her homework at the table, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Peter was playing video games in the living room. Paul hadn't come back from the shop yet. The doorbell rang. Megan wiped her hands on her apron and went to answer, expecting a neighbor or a delivery person. When she opened the door, she saw a woman she had never seen before. Tall, around 40, with blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, wearing an expensive grey business suit. She had a leather briefcase under her arm and smiled at Megan, but it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Megan Thompson Miller?" she asked, her voice polite but with a tone Megan couldn't place. "Yes. Who are you?" "My name is Patricia Mendez. I'm an attorney. May I come in? I need to speak with you about a very important matter." Megan hesitated. but something in the woman's seriousness made her agree. She led her to the small living room, asking Julia to go to her room. The girl obeyed, but not without casting a suspicious glance at the visitor. Patricia sat on the sofa, crossed her legs, and opened her briefcase. She took out several documents. "I'll be direct," she began. "I've represented the interests of your husband, Robert Miller, for 8 years. I handled your wedding, property acquisitions, his will, and for the last 13 months, I've worked tirelessly alongside him to find you. I don't understand. Why are you here?" "Because I need you to understand the gravity of the situation you're in." Patricia pushed some papers toward Megan. "You are legally married to Robert Miller. You share assets totaling over $12 million. The company you ran together, Miller Consulting, has been practically at a standstill for over a year because Robert refused to make any major decisions without you." Megan looked at the papers, but the words seemed to blur. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know, but these are the facts, and there's something else." Patricia pulled out another document. "This is the medical report from the day you were found by Paul Davis. Head injury, mild traumatic brain injury, multiple abrasions." "I know that, Paul told me. But did he tell you that you were found just 3 blocks from your own house?" Megan froze. "What? 3 blocks, Megan. You disappeared from your home on a rainy January night. Your car was found abandoned near an overpass 6 miles away, but you were found injured 3 blocks from your house 2 days later. The question is, how did you get there?" Megan's heart raced. I don't know. I don't remember." "And don't you find that strange? That of all the places Paul could have found you, it was right near your own home, the home you shared with Robert for years. What are you implying?" Patricia leaned forward. "I hired a private investigator. He discovered some interesting things about Paul Davis." "I don't want to hear this." "You need to hear it." Patricia pulled out more papers. "Paul isn't just a humble mechanic trying to get by. He was Robert's mechanic. He worked in your private garage, fixing the family cars. He was fired 3 months before you disappeared." Megan felt the floor drop out from under her. That can't be true." "It is. And do you know why he was fired? Because Robert caught him making copies of the mansion's keys. At the time, we thought he was planning a robbery, but nothing was ever taken, until you disappeared." "Stop!" Megan stood up, her hands shaking. "Paul saved me. He took care of me when I had no one. Or he took advantage of a situation he created himself. You have no proof of that." "You're right. I have no concrete proof, but I have too many coincidences to ignore." Patricia stood up as well. "And there's one more thing you need to know. The night you disappeared, you and Robert had a fight. A bad one about—" Just then the front door burst open. Paul walked in, covered in grease, and froze when he saw Patricia. His face went pale, then red with anger. "What are you doing here?" "Ah, Mr. Davis. How convenient. I was just talking about you." Paul lunged forward, but Megan stepped between them. "Paul, is it true? Did you work for Robert? Did you know us before you found me?" Paul's silence was louder than any confession. "Answer me," Megan yelled, tears already streaming. "Was it all a lie? Did you know me before?" Paul swallowed hard. "Yes, I worked for him, but finding you was a coincidence. I swear I really did find you hurt." "How convenient," Patricia muttered. "You shut up," Paul exploded. "You don't know anything. You weren't there. You didn't see the state she was in." Megan backed away, pressing against the wall. Her head was throbbing, fragmented images flashing like a broken film. A car, rain, someone yelling, bright lights, pain. I need air," she murmured, running out of the house. Paul tried to follow her, but Patricia blocked him. "I think it's best to let her process this alone, don't you? You've destroyed everything," Paul said, his voice broken. "She was happy. For the first time in over a year, she was building something, and you threw it all away. She deserves to know the truth." "The truth?" Paul laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "The truth is that I love her, that I've spent the last 13 months taking care of her, protecting her, giving her a life she never had with that rich man who barely left his office. That rich man is her husband. That rich man neglected her. I saw it. When I worked there, I saw how lonely she was while he was away on business trips. I saw her crying in the garden when she thought no one was looking. I saw how unhappy she was. Patricia frowned. You were spying on her. I was watching her, Paul corrected, and when I got fired, when I had to leave that house, I thought I'd never see her again. But then fate gave me a second chance. Fate? Patricia shook her head. Mr. Davis, you need professional help. Outside, Megan was running through the streets with no destination. Her mind was in chaos. Paul knew her before. He had worked at her house. That changed everything. She stopped at a corner, breathless, leaning against a lamppost. That's when she saw, across the street, a woman watching her. A woman of about 50, thin, with short grey hair. Her eyes were fixed on Megan with a frightening intensity. When their gazes met, the woman started to cross the street. "Megan," she said, and there were tears in her voice. "Thank God, finally. Who are you?" "My name is Beatrice Davis." The last name hit Megan like a punch. "Davis, are you—" "I'm Paul's mother." Beatrice took Megan's hands, squeezing them tightly. "And I need to tell you the truth about that night. The truth my son will never have the courage to tell you." Megan tried to pull her hands away, but Beatrice held on. "Please listen to me. I know you must be confused, scared. But you deserve to know what really happened. Then tell me." Beatrice looked around, as if checking if anyone could hear them. "Not here. Come with me. There's a coffee shop on the corner, please." Against her better judgment, Megan agreed. They sat at a table in the back of the small cafe. Beatrice ordered 2 coffees, but neither of them touched their cups. "I know my son loves you," Beatrice began. "I know because I know my son. But his love, it's complicated, it always has been." "What are you talking about?" "Paul fell in love with you when he worked at your house. He would tell me about you, about how you were kind to him, always offered him water, asked how his day was. Simple things that meant the world to a young man who never had much." Megan felt her stomach churn. "He became obsessed," Beatrice continued. "When he was fired, it got worse. He would drive to your house just to see you from a distance. I begged him to stop, told him it was sick, but he wouldn't listen. And the night I disappeared—" Beatrice closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "He was there. I know because he called me, frantic, saying there had been an accident, that you had fallen, hit your head. He took you to the hospital, but he used a fake name. When you woke up with no memory, he saw an opportunity." Tears streamed down Megan's face. "He kidnapped me." "No," Beatrice denied vehemently. "It wasn't like that. You really were hurt. You really had amnesia. But he didn't look for your family. He didn't try to find out who you were. He just brought you home and let you believe you were a family." "And you? Why didn't you report him?" "Because I'm a coward," Beatrice admitted, shame in her voice. "And because, in part, I believed him when he said you were happier this way, that your old life was bad. He convinced himself of that, and he convinced me too. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw that man in the wheelchair looking for you. I saw his desperation, and I saw you torn, suffering, and I realized none of this was fair. You deserve the truth, even if it means I lose my son." Megan stood up, the chair scraping loudly on the tile floor. I have to go. Megan, wait." But she was already running out of the cafe. Her mind was a whirlwind. Did Paul love her? Or was it obsession? Had he really saved her? Or just taken advantage of her vulnerability? She grabbed her cell phone and called Robert. "Meg, where are you? Patricia called me. She said, I know everything, and I need you now. Please, come get me." "Where are you?" She looked around, reading the street sign. "Palm Street near St. Joseph's Market." "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Robert arrived in 8. Megan got in the car, and as soon as the door closed, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Robert took her hand, squeezing it. "Take me away from here," she pleaded. "Away from everyone. I can't take it anymore." But what neither of them knew was that Paul was watching them from inside the auto shop across the street. And what they would have seen on his face wasn't sadness or anger. It was determination. Paul grabbed his car keys, determined not to lose the only good thing that had ever happened in his life, even if it meant doing something he never imagined he was capable of. Robert drove the modified car through the streets of Chicago, casting worried glances at Megan, who was curled up in the passenger seat. She hadn't stopped crying since she got in the car. "Where do you want to go?" he asked softly. "I don't know. Anywhere. I don't want to see anyone right now." Robert made a decision and drove to the lake house his family owned in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, about a 90-minute drive from the city. It was an isolated place surrounded by trees where he and Megan used to spend weekends when they wanted to escape the stress of the city. When they arrived, Megan got out of the car and walked to the porch, hugging herself. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "I've been here before, haven't I?" she asked without looking back. "Many times. It was your favorite place." Robert went up the ramp to stand beside her. "You said you could think clearly here." Megan laughed, but it was a humorless sound. "Think clearly, that's exactly what I can't do right now." They went inside. Robert turned on the lights while Megan explored the rooms with a distant expression. There were photos of them on the walls, laughing, hugging, happy, a whole life she couldn't remember. "Robert," she said, finally sitting on the sofa, "I need you to be honest with me, completely honest. I always have been. Were we happy? Before the accident? Before I disappeared? Were we really happy?" Robert hesitated, and that hesitation said everything. "We had our problems," he admitted, positioning his wheelchair in front of her. "Like every couple. I worked too much. Sometimes I neglected you. And after my accident, things got tense." "Tense how?" "I was frustrated, depressed. I went from a man who ran marathons to someone who depended on others for the most basic things, and I took it out. On you." "Did we fight?" "Yes, especially in those last few weeks." Megan closed her eyes. "The lawyer, Patricia, she was about to tell me about a fight, the fight on the night I disappeared. What was it about?" Robert ran a hand over his face, clearly not wanting to relive it. "About a baby. You wanted to have a child. We'd wanted one for years, but it was never the right time. After the accident, you insisted it was the perfect time, that a baby would bring hope, something positive, but I said no. I said I could. No. I said I barely take care of myself. How could I take care of a child?" Tears streamed down Megan's face. Fragments of memory began to surface, a room painted yellow, catalogues of baby furniture, a heated argument. "And what did I say?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You said you felt trapped, that you had given up so much for me, your own career, your dreams, to manage my company, to take care of me. And all you were asking for was a chance to be a mother. I said horrible things. I said you were being selfish, that you were only thinking of yourself. And then I left. You left. You took the car and drove off in the rain. I tried calling you dozens of times, but you didn't answer. 3 hours later, they found your car abandoned. But not you." Megan stood up, walking to the window. "Paul said he was there, that there was an accident." "And you believe him?" "I don't know. I don't know who to believe anymore." That's when they heard the sound of tires on the gravel road. A car was approaching quickly. Robert and Megan exchanged an apprehensive look. The car screeched to a halt in front of the house. Paul got out, and he wasn't alone. Julia was with him, her little eyes red from crying. "Megan!" Paul yelled, running to the porch. "You can't just leave like this. We have a family." Megan ran out of the house. "Paul, what are you doing? Why did you bring Julia?" "Because she's been crying non-stop since you left. She thinks you abandoned her." Julia ran to Megan, clinging to her legs. "Mommy, please come home. I promise I'll be good, I promise." Megan's heart shattered. She knelt, hugging the little girl. "Sweetie, it's not about you being good. You're perfect." "Then why did you leave?" Robert appeared at the door. "Davis, using a child for emotional manipulation is low, even for you." "Me?" Paul advanced. "You're the one manipulating, filling her head with stories of a life she doesn't even remember. She's happy with me. She loves my kids." "And you built that happiness on lies," Robert retorted. You knew who she was the whole time. You worked at our house. You were fired for making copies of our keys." Paul went pale. He looked at Megan, who was still hugging Julia. You told him that?" "His lawyer told me, and your mother told me the rest." Megan stood up, keeping Julia close. "That you were there the night I disappeared. That you took me to the hospital and used a fake name. Because I was protecting you." "Protecting or taking advantage?" "I saved you!" Paul exploded. "You were bleeding, confused, scared. If I hadn't found you, you could have—" He stopped, realizing what he had almost said. "I could have what, Paul?" Megan asked, her voice dangerously calm. "Died? Been found by someone else? Gone home?" His silence was deafening. "Tell her the truth, Davis," Robert said. "Tell her what really happened that night." Paul looked at Julia, then at Megan. His hands were shaking. "Julia, go to the car," he said, his voice hoarse. "But Daddy—" "Go to the car." The girl started crying again, running to the vehicle. Megan took a step toward Paul. "Now tell me everything, from the beginning." Paul leaned against a porch post as if his legs could no longer support him. I was following you. I'd followed you before, several times after I was fired. I just wanted to see you, to know you were okay." "That's stalking, Davis," Robert interrupted. "Shut up," Paul yelled. "You don't know what it's like to love someone you can never have, living in your luxury house, sleeping next to her every night, while I could barely pay my rent." "So you followed me," Megan insisted. "And then what?" "And then I saw you leave the house that night. I saw you were crying, driving too fast in the rain. I tried to catch up, I honked, flashed my lights, but you didn't stop. And then—" Tears were streaming down Paul's face now. "And then you lost control of the car. You skidded, hit the curb, your car flipped. I stopped, ran to you. You were trapped inside, bleeding from your head, screaming in pain." Megan brought a hand to her head, touching the scar she still had. Memories began to surface. The sound of twisting metal, shattering glass, rain coming through the cracked windshield. "I managed to get you out," Paul continued. "You were conscious, but confused. You kept saying you wanted to go home, but you didn't know which home. I took you to the hospital. They gave you medicine, stitched up the cut. When you woke up, you didn't remember anything. Not your name, not where you lived, nothing." "And you didn't tell them who she was," Robert said, his voice filled with contained rage. "You didn't call me. You didn't look for her family. You just took her to your house." "I was going to," Paul insisted. "I swear I was. But then I heard her talking to the nurse, saying she didn't want to remember, that whatever was in her life before made her unhappy. And I thought maybe it was a sign." "A sign?" Megan repeated, incredulous. "You thought it was a sign that I had amnesia, that it was your chance to have me?" "No," Paul denied vehemently. "It wasn't like that. I saw a chance for you to be happy, away from that cold house, from that man who neglected you. I could give you something real, something simple but true." "You could give me a lie," Megan screamed. "Everything was a lie. Your house, your kids, your love, all built on keeping me in the dark about who I really was." "The kids aren't a lie," Paul said, his voice breaking. "Their love for you isn't a lie. And my love for you was never a lie." Robert moved closer. "But your love is possessive, Davis. You didn't save her. You kept her prisoner in a fake life." Paul turned to him, his fists clenched. "And what did you do? Work 70 hours a week? Refuse to give her the child she wanted so badly? Push her away when she needed you most?" The words hit Robert like punches. He knew there was truth in them. "Both of you," Megan said, her voice tired and broken. "You both love me, I know that, but neither of you asked me what I want, what I need. You're fighting over me like I'm a trophy without caring that I'm being destroyed in the process." She looked at the car, where Julia was watching through the window, her little face pressed against the glass. "Julia loves me, Peter loves me, and I love them too. That's not fake just because the foundation was a lie. Those feelings are real." "Then stay with me," Paul pleaded. "Forget the past. Build a future with us." "But I am the past," Megan yelled. I am Megan Thompson Miller, Celia's daughter, Robert's wife, a business graduate from Northwestern, with a birthmark on my shoulder and an allergy to shrimp. I may not remember everything, but now I know who I am. And I can't just ignore that." She turned to Robert. "But I also can't just go back and pretend the last year didn't happen, that I didn't live, didn't love, didn't form bonds. Those children are in my heart. Paul is in my heart." "Even knowing he lied?" Robert asked, pain in his voice. "Even knowing he lied? Because the lies don't erase the real moments. The laughter with Julia, the hugs from Peter, the family breakfasts. That all happened. It was real." Paul took a step toward her, holding out his hand. "Then we can start over. No more lies. I'll tell you everything. You'll know the whole truth, and we'll move forward." Megan looked at his hand, then at Robert. She saw the desperation in both men, the love, the hope, and she realized that any choice she made would be a betrayal. "I can't choose," she said finally. "Not now. Maybe never." "Meg," Robert began, "I need time. Time alone, without either of you pressuring me, pulling at me, making me feel guilty. I need to find out who I am now, not who I was, not who you want me to be. Who I am." "And the kids?" Paul asked, panic in his voice. "I'll visit them, but you need to explain to them that things are complicated, that adults sometimes need space to solve their problems." "And how much time do you need?" Robert wanted to know. "I don't know. Weeks, months, however long it takes." Megan started walking toward the road. The two men watched her, neither knowing if they should follow or let her go. "Where are you going?" Paul asked. "To my mother. I'm going to stay with Celia in Denver. She's the only person in all of this who doesn't have an ulterior motive, who doesn't want anything from me except to have me back." She stopped, turning back to the two men. "And when I decide what to do with my life, you'll be the first to know. But until then, leave me alone. Please." Megan kept walking down the gravel road until she disappeared among the trees. Paul fell to his knees on the ground, covering his face with his hands. Robert just stared at where she had vanished, silent tears streaming down his face. Inside the car, Julia was crying, asking where her mommy had gone. And in Chicago, someone was watching it all from a distance through a long-range camera, a satisfied smile on their face, because the game was just beginning, and the most devastating truth had yet to be revealed, the truth about what really happened on the night of the accident, and the role a third person played in it all. Megan spent the next 2 weeks at Celia's simple apartment. Her mother respected her. Silence, offering only her presence and hugs when needed. It was a Sunday afternoon when Megan finally went out. They were walking through a farmer's market when she stopped at a spice stall. The smell of rosemary brought a flash, a sunny kitchen, Robert hugging her from behind, laughter. The memory was fleeting but real. "You're remembering," Celia observed, "just fragments." When they got back to the apartment, there was a letter under the door. No return address, just Megan's name handwritten on the envelope. Inside, a typed message. "You deserve to know the truth, the complete truth. Meet me at Millennium Park tomorrow at 3 p.m. near the lake. Come alone. There are things about that night that neither Robert nor Paul know. Someone who was there." "This is dangerous," Celia said. "Or it could be the answer I'm looking for." The next morning, Robert called. "How are you?" he asked, his voice tired. "Surviving. You?" "Same." A pause. "Julia has been asking for you every day. Paul called me and asked if I could ask you to visit her." "Paul called you?" "I know. I was surprised too. I think he's realized that we're on the same side now. The side that wants you to be happy no matter what that means." Megan felt her heart ache. "I'll visit her soon, I promise. But I need a few more days first." "Meg, I need to tell you something. I hired another investigator to find out what really happened that night. And he found something. Security footage from a store on the route of the accident. The footage shows 3 cars in that area around that time. Yours, Paul's, and a third one. A black BMW. Megan felt a chill run down her spine. "Whose car was it? We're still trying to find out." The license plate was covered in mud in the video, but Meg, this car was right behind you, and it looks like it followed you on purpose, forced you to speed up. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe someone wanted you to go off the road. Megan hung up the phone, her hands shaking. The letter, the black BMW. Someone who was there. It was all starting to make a terrifying kind of sense. At 3 o'clock, Megan was at Millennium Park. She sat on a bench near the lake watching families stroll by. Megan, an elegant blonde woman in dark sunglasses. Who are you? The woman took off her glasses. My name is Adrienne Torres. I worked with you and Robert, and I was his mistress. Megan felt like she'd been slapped. Robert had a mistress. He did. The affair ended 3 months before your accident, when he decided to try to save your marriage. Why are you telling me this? Adrienne looked out at the lake. Because I was the third person that night. I was driving the black BMW. Megan's blood ran cold. You followed me? I did. I was furious that he'd left me. I saw you leave crying. I saw an opportunity to scare you. I sped up, got too close, flashed my high beams. You got nervous, accelerated too much, and crashed. And you left me there. I panicked. I saw Paul run to you and I fled. Adrienne cried. I've lived with this for 13 months. Megan stood up, backing away. You destroyed my life, out of jealousy. I know. I'm going to tell everyone. You're going to pay for what you did. I accept that, but there's one thing you need to know first about Robert. Adrienne spoke quickly. The affair with me wasn't the only one. There were others for years. You found out 6 months before the accident and you stayed. Why? Because you were trying to have a baby and you didn't want to give up on your dream of being a mother. Megan stopped. That's a lie. Ask him. Ask him about the others. Adrienne walked away, putting her sunglasses back on. I'm the villain in this story, but I'm not the only one. You deserve to know that. She disappeared, leaving Megan with a devastating truth. Megan picked up her phone, trembling, and called Robert. Meg? Is it true? The affairs? Adrienne? Others? Is it true? His silence was a confession. How did you know? He began. Is it true? Yes, he admitted. Yes, it's true, but I changed. Megan hung up. She threw the phone on the ground. She fell to her knees, sobbing. Her old life wasn't perfect. It was full of betrayal, lies, pain. Paul had lied, but Robert had been lying for years. Her phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Anna? Julia's scared voice. I need you. Daddy's really upset. He won't stop crying and he broke stuff. Peter's scared. Please come back. Megan's heart broke one more time. Those children were innocent, and they needed her. Megan hailed a cab, begging the driver to hurry. When she arrived, the door was ajar. The house was destroyed. The sofa overturned, the table broken, glass everywhere. Paul was sitting on the floor, hugging his knees, rocking back and forth. Daddy hurt his hand, Julia said, coming out from behind the sofa with Peter. Megan tended to Paul's cut while sending the kids to their room. It was deep, but she bandaged it. What happened? She asked. Robert called me. He was frantic, said he'd lost you again, and I realized I'm no different from him. I lied too. The children, Paul, you scared them. The realization hit him. Julia? Peter? They were terrified. Paul started to cry. I ruined everything. Megan sat beside him. Today I found out things about Robert, about myself, and I realized we're all flawed. We all lie. We all make mistakes. That doesn't justify what I did. No, but it makes me understand that there's no perfect villain or perfect hero. She glanced down the hall. But they're innocent. They deserve better. Are you going to stay? Megan took a deep breath. I don't know, but I can't leave Julia and Peter. The love I feel for them is real. And for me? Gratitude, affection, but love. I don't know if it's love or just recognition for you saving me. And Robert? He lied too, for years. He had affairs. The woman who caused my accident was his mistress. Paul went pale. But he spent over a year looking for you. Guilt makes people do extraordinary things. Megan stood up, starting to clean up the broken glass. I've spent the last month torn, and now I realize I can't choose either of you, not like this. So what are you going to do? I'm going to stay. For now. For the kids. But I'm sleeping on the couch. I need space, Paul. They cleaned in silence. Afterward, Megan went to check on the children. They were huddled together in bed, scared. Are you guys okay? Peter cried. I thought Daddy was going to do something bad. Megan hugged them both. Your dad loves you very much, and so do I. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going. You. Promise? Julia asked. I promise. She stayed with them until they fell asleep, singing a song she didn't know she remembered. Later, Paul thanked her. For coming back. For not hating me. I don't hate you. I'm hurt, confused, tired. But I don't hate you. Mr. Miller called while you were with the kids. I let it go to voicemail. Megan looked at her cell phone on the coffee table. 6 missed calls from Robert. I'll call him tomorrow. Today has been enough. She lay down on the sofa. Paul went to his room, leaving the door open. Her phone vibrated. A text from Robert. Meg, please give me a chance to explain everything. No more lies this time. I love you. Ah. From Celia. My daughter, where are you? I'm worried. And a third message from Adrienne. I went to the police station. I confessed everything. They're investigating. I'm so sorry. It was too much. Megan turned off her phone. She went to the kids' room just to watch them sleep. They were so small, so vulnerable. She made a decision in that moment. A decision that would change everything. She wouldn't choose Robert. She wouldn't choose Paul. She would choose herself. And these children. In the morning, Megan told Paul, I'm staying for Julia and Peter, but not as your girlfriend. I'll be the mother figure they need. But we need to set boundaries. We are not a couple. We are co-parents. You want us to raise them together but not be together? Exactly. Paul nodded. It wasn't what he wanted, but it was more than he expected. They explained it to the children. So, you're not my real mom? Peter asked. Not in the traditional way, but I'm someone who loves you like a mom. The children accepted it with childlike simplicity. Megan called Robert. The conversation was painful. She told him her decision about the divorce. Robert cried, but he said, If this makes you happy, then I accept it. I will always love you. In the following days, Megan rebuilt her life. She filed for divorce. She started working at the auto shop. She took the kids to school. And slowly, she began to feel whole. 3 months passed. Megan was planting roses with Julia when the phone rang. It was Patricia. Megan, there's news on the case and you need to know. What happened? The investigation revealed something else about Robert. What is it? It has to do with the real reason you two were trying to have a baby, and it wasn't for the reasons you think. Megan felt the floor drop out from under her, because she realized there were still secrets, and this last secret would be the one to finally make her understand everything. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Megan, Robert, and Paul has touched your hearts. If you were moved by this journey of reconstruction, forgiveness, and impossible choices, please leave a like. Subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments which part resonated with you the most. Was it the moment Megan discovered she was alive? Paul's devastating confession? The revelation of Robert's betrayals? Or Megan's courage to choose herself and the children above any man? Every day we bring you intense and engaging stories like this one, revealing the deepest, most human side of relationships. Stories that make us believe that even in the face of the most difficult obstacles, the most painful lies, we can still find the strength to start over. We'll see you in the next episode, with more emotion, more drama, and more stories that will make you reflect on life, on love, and on the courage to choose your own happiness.